I think today was a great opportunity to kind of interact with generations that you never really interacted with, and like the discussion was much wider than it usually is with an elderly person. And like when I'm talking to my granny, it's usually about how was school, stuff like this. But I feel like today we got to actually talk about more in-depth questions that you talk about with your friends. So it was a more friendly kind of interactions instead of just how was school, basics like that.
I think the idea of not being put on the spot, having to answer questions, whereas we were exploring characters and looking at our ideas and what I think of a young person and what you think of an old person, and then we switched it.
Yeah.
And then we said, well, what do we think of older people ourselves?
Yeah.
And you expressed what you think of young people yourselves, and that was a big opener as well. That was very interesting because it just shows you how different we are, and yet somehow how similar we are.
Yeah.
Given the chance. What was the highlight for you?
I think the highlight was definitely kind of just the conversations we had and kind of asking each other what we think like interacting with other generations is, and just really like what the views we have of ourselves, the views we have of other generations, and kind of just talking to each other about what kind of intergeneration practicing is.
Well, it's very interesting. This is a very unusual Saturday for me. At the moment, I don't know what day it is. And it's grand talking to the teenagers and hearing their point of view of how they get on at school and what they do and what they like, And I learn from that. And when I meet my grandchildren, I'll be explaining to them and telling them what good day I had and all about it, Now you take this.
Yeah, I think I've learned like old people's perspectives and just of young people and that. And I mean, yeah, I'll probably also talk to my grandparents about this as well, and they'll be very interested because I haven't really been talking to old people, haven't really gotten the chance to, so.
I think when I saw first this morning, intergeneration, what name God is this now? And yet it is something about that, what we don't do, listen to the other of a different age group, to hear them and to actually interact with them, because I wouldn't do that naturally with my nieces and nephews. It's usually, how are you? How's it going? How's school? Or what was the match like? But actually to hear their views, which was great with us at the table this morning because we were about 9 at the table, and yet there were 9 very different views. But you could see the different views coming from the older generation and the ones coming from, as you expressed it, the digital generation, which you expressed very good this morning, just how you see yourselves.
Yeah, I feel like it was also kind of very interesting to interact, not just when I go to events like these with Feroga, it's mainly people from our community. But it was interesting to see people from across the border that's technically another country, but yet we're so similar culturally. And like it was just very interesting to talk to people that just from a whole other community, from both the younger generation and the older generation.
Yeah, well, I suppose it was a different sort of, it was a very different like activity and a different kind of thing to do. I wasn't expecting me as much crack as it was.
Did it make you think today?
Yeah. Like it felt we're all, when we were doing the groups and all and writing down, like coming up with ideas and all, it felt like we were all the same age and we were all, having fun.
And did it make you think of, I thought, gosh, what you were writing down when we were doing the activities of, that's amazing what they're thinking about.
Yeah.
Sometimes we older people don't really think about what younger people
really think of the situation. We think we know it all. And vice versa, you probably think you know it all. Actually.
Well, like, it was good. It was funny hearing like the ideas that older people had of us and we had of older people, and we were saying like how the older people an activity where we were, you know, what age do you become old and what age do you stop being young?
Yeah.
And everyone had different ideas. Like the older people had older age, and then the younger people had a younger age. So it was funny seeing the difference in the mindsets.
And their mindsets of what they all had.
I don't know if I'm but out there of the entire thing.
Well, my experience was amazing. I've met a bunch of new people. My opinions on people have changed, and my experience was overall amazing. I used to just think the old people were grumpy and all I did was knit. But now I think they have lots of stories to tell, lots of experiences, and it's just so wonderful to listen to them talk.
I wouldn't be as judging. The first reaction is to say something, walk away, move away, or that type of thing. Don't engage, because people can't relate, I suppose, the older generation. But now, because of the project, you're a totally different awareness.
Yeah, it's been really good. We've went to Kildare. We went to Kildare Farm Foods. So there was a VR experience. It was kind of a Christmas trip we went on. So we were in some sleigh and it was bringing us around Santa's North Pole. So that was good. It's kind of, even when we were down in the room there, we were talking about how it's like made us more inclined to say hello. So like if I see, like I've always kind of had a good relationship with older people, but like I'm more inclined to, instead of just saying hello, I'm more inclined to actually stop and talk to them now. Like I saw one of the grannies, should I say, in Tesco the other day, and I stopped and I said hello Anne. And it was good because instead of she didn't just say, oh yeah, hi Kieran, and continue with her shopping. We actually stopped, we talked. So it's not, the barrier is obviously still going to be there a little bit, but it's more like we consider them more as friends now instead of like colleagues or counterparts. So it's just good kind of in that aspect.
So I work with older people's groups. I work with the Mayobridge Men's Shed and Mayobridge Women's Group. And this was their first opportunity to work with the youth group. And I think it's been terrific in that I think the two older groups have gelled really well together. Not sure whether they've gelled so well with the younger ones, but it's all a learning curve. And I think it is, as time goes on and the more they meet, the better it's getting. But I find some of it quite challenging. Some of it was difficult, but maybe just because coming from an organisational point of it. No.
Someone was telling me about, they're explaining to me the Black and Tans on our walk in Balbriggan. They're explaining all the history about Balbriggan that I never knew. They know more about the place than I know about the place I've lived my entire life. They haven't lived their entire life. Here am I. Their stories were also what they've got, like they're saying their Christmas gifts and all, and like how like it was there. So they had a bunch of funny stories and a bunch of good stories as well. I like to listen to. One was telling me about how they burnt their Christmas present one year. It was like they thought their dad thought it was. They burnt it, but then their dad thought they were still the smell of it, but then their house was on fire. So that was real interesting, that story. But I liked it a lot. But that was that story of all them. The story of the house on fire.
I've always thought that they have so much experience, and my great granny died when I was 7. Not to make it dark or anything, but I kind of thought, and I regret it, because I always had such a big interest in Irish history. And I kind of thought to myself, well, she would have been on the streets in 1916 when people were shooting each other, and she would have been alive in the War of Independence. So I've always regretted not asking her them questions and asking her how it was. And just, they kind of have experience in everything, much more experience cooking. I make pancakes with my granny sometimes, and we go out shopping. It's just, there's a lot to learn really.